Hello everyone, my name is Hannah and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going through my bookshelves. So you'll notice that I have two copies of Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. It's because I recently got a concussion, which is doing much better, but I wanted to borrow the large print version to figure out if I could read it, and I haven't actually started that yet because I feel like my brain is not ready. So this is a copy that I borrowed from a friend. This is a copy that I borrowed from the library. This is the most recent edition of the London Review, which I'm trying to figure out if I enjoy. Reddit said that it was better than the Paris Review, so I thought I'd give it a whirl, and again, have a concussion and cannot read tiny little newspaper print right now. This is Practical Sequel, which I borrowed from a coworker that I should actually read before I give it back to her, but I don't wanna. So it's just living here. And then The Incandescent by Emily Tesh is another book that I borrowed from the same friend. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, which I have to read. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but she's moving in like 4 months, and so I have to read this before I give it back to her before she moves. Next up, we have like the books that I kind of just want to read coming up next. So my year of rest and relaxation, I kind of just want to work through. I don't know why it came up again recently, but it's on my physical TBR and I want it off of my physical TBR. Beloved by Toni Morrison, I really want to pick up. But honestly, now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know if I want to read Beloved first or Frankenstein first, but Beloved was described to me recently as like a quintessential like gothic novel. So I might pick up Beloved sooner than later. That's why it's over here. Hi, Eli. I can't believe I just ignored him even though he was in frame. Oh, getting fur in my coffee. Okay. Well, anyways, Beloved, Toni Morrison. Romance in Marseille by Claude McKay, I talked a lot about 2 videos ago. I bought this while I was in Paris as my like book about Paris. And then one of my managers heard that I was going to Northern Ireland and really liked this. Like, this is like a thriller from the 80s called Harry's Game that I am like halfway through right now, but I can't read. This is a book that I did not want to bring into March with me, and I'm recording this on Pi Day, March 14th. So, c'est la vie. It is what it is. That's Harry's Game. State of Paradise I got in a book box subscription a while ago. This is a signed first edition copy, and I got this probably actually in like 2024. So it's been 2 years, and I've been looking at it for 2 years and haven't gotten to it. So I would really like to get to it. This I bought in like 2021, I think. I bought this when I was doing stuff in college, like RA stuff. So it was like super relevant at the time. And I think that was also when this book was first published. And so like everybody and their mom bought it, and I kind of want it off my physical TBR. And I was gonna just donate it because I was like, I don't know, like I think that the themes are still really relevant, but I think that I could be reading something else that like gets there. And like I do a lot of reading in this space, so I'm not like feeling too bad. But then I decided that it was too performative of me to buy it and then not read it. So I need to read this before I decide to do anything else with it. And then this is The Spell Shop, which my office mate recommended to me, that I got in large print from the library. I was working my way through The Artist's Way before I got my concussion, and I'm kind of on a hiatus from that at the moment, but because writing and reading is hard for me. How many times am I going to say that in this video? Let's let that be the last time. Okay. The Financial Feminist, I'm also kind of trying to work through like The Artist's Way, so I'm kind of reading it like one chapter at a time and then coming back to it when I like accomplish the things that happened in that chapter. But chapter 3 is like save $12,000, and so we're still working on that. But also it's kind of because I am combining a few different financial philosophies, and I just am trying to tackle, I have like a small emergency fund, which is like against the principles of Financial Feminist. She really wants you to have a fully funded emergency fund. I have a small emergency fund, and I'm working towards some more of my high interest debt before I fully build up my emergency fund. But that's like an okay position for me personally to be in. If I did not have the support that I had, I would not be doing that. So that's Financial Feminist. And then Portrait of a Londoner, I kept out because I've already read this, but I kept it out because I wasn't sure if I was going to do a like what I read in February video. It's getting so late in March. I think I'm just going to combine it with February and March because I'm not actually reading very much right now. Okay, next up we have my fiction bookshelves. I'm gonna get out of the frame in just a second, but my top and bottom shelf have most of my fiction reads except for this area. This is my poetry, which I guess is also fiction, but poetry is stacked on top of each other, and then these were just like randomly placed into here. And also, this is not fiction. I don't know why that's there. So it goes read books for this entire top shelf up to here, and then unread from then on. But I think I've read most of my poetry books. Okay, I'm gonna get out of the way and start gesturing just like with my hand. Maybe I'll get like a cat toy or something. Okay, disembodied Hannah taking over, and I'm gonna be gesturing with this poor knitting needle that my dog niece got to when she was visiting, but it's okay. I don't really knit with straight needles anyways. I just bought a kit when I was learning how to knit, and it came with these. So we have these. I was for a while doing like my top shelf books, and so all of the books that I loved the very most ended up on the top shelf, but then I realized that I only really keep books that I think are top shelf books. So there's like no need to like put them in a special place because I was never going to own books that weren't a quote unquote top shelf book, if you know what I'm saying. So we got, oh, also, I don't think I mentioned, these are alphabetized by author's last name. So we got, there's Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo here, which I really enjoyed. I don't, like, there's a couple of books on here that I don't remember a ton about, but when I read them, they were super impactful to me, and that was Family Lore. I think I got this in a book box subscription. It might have been Book of the Month when Book of the Month was really young, but it could have also not been Book of the Month. I don't really remember. And then Enter the Aardvark by Jessica Anthony, I really enjoyed. This is just kind of like crazy. It's just kind of a wild ride and also really sad. I feel like my library would not be complete without some Margaret Atwood, without some Handmaid's Tale, and so this ended up in my general fiction section and not my classics section. I don't know why. It just felt right to be here. We Could Be Rats, I really super loved. There's like, this one is so sad. There's a lot of sad family dynamics in this, but there's like so much sisterly love, and I love that. I love being an older sister. I love my sisters and my brother so much. So that's We Could Be Rats. Death Valley by Melissa Broder. I don't honestly know if I enjoyed enough to keep it. It was fine, but like I thought the ending was not satisfying at all. And then we have The Love of My Life, Becky Chambers with her own little section. Oh, these are all Becky Chambers actually. I have been scouring the ends of the earth for a used edition of the third book, which is a Record of a Spaceborne Few. I made it halfway through Record of a Spaceborne Few, but then decided that it was too much brain power for me at the moment, and so probably won't be able to pick it up again for a while, but loved The Long Way to a Smaller Planet and A Closed and Common Orbit. This is like quintessential cozy fantasy. If you want a cozy fantasy and you don't know where to start here. This one is really good. Just a heads up that this is a 4-book series, the Wayfarer series, and they're kind of 4 interconnected standalones that all take place in the same universe. They aren't really connected, but you do meet the characters in the other books. So that was really satisfying. And then A Psalm for the Wild Bill and A Prayer for the Crown Child, I also really enjoyed. If you've been curious about what a utopia could look like as opposed to a dystopia, I would pick up A Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crown Child. It's a tiny little baby duology, and they have been published together more recently. So you might see them just as like a single book. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell was the beast that I conquered in the last quarter of 2025. And I read this because a book that is missing from my shelf is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I think Piranesi is probably my favorite book for the moment. And I wanted to just spend more time with Susanna Clarke, and I think that she painted a beautiful universe in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and also this book is a tribute to her brother, again with the sibling love, you guys. So I would do crazy things for my siblings, including writing this crazy beast of a novel. Sorry if my microphone is doing weird things. It's like falling into my hoodie. So hopefully you aren't hearing me adjusting that. So anyways, this was a huge undertaking, and it is capital A atmospheric. I'm not sure that a ton actually happens in this book, and it is chunky. But then there's The Woods at Midwinter, which is a like creepy little fable, which is set in the same universe as Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. And I didn't actually know that when I read it, so I have to reread it. But I love Miss Susanna Clark. I love her. I love her. I love her. Read Piranesi if you haven't already. It's not here because I lent it to a friend, not because I don't like it. Okay, This Is How You Lose the Time War. This edition was signed by both of the authors. I met them at ReaderCon 2024, which happens annually in Massachusetts. I'm not sure if I'll go this year. I think it's actually closer to where I live this year than it was in 2024, so I might just because it was convenient. But these authors actually met at ReaderCon and then wrote like this entire thing basically in Massachusetts. And one of them is my neighbor, like low-key. I think he lives like a mile from me. Max Gladstone lives like a mile from me. Fun fact. Okay, Shark Heart was a creepy little book. Not creepy. It was a freaky little book that I loved so much. This is by Emily Habak, and it's about a woman whose husband turns gradually into a shark. Like, people have terminal animal illnesses, and so they just like start turning into an animal, and some of the progressions, it's basically Animorphs, but if Animorphs was like kind of cancer, and some of the like prognoses are more aggressive than others, and great white shark is one of the most aggressive prognoses that one could be diagnosed with. And the main character's husband is diagnosed with great white shark Animorphism. The second half of this book, I don't know how I felt about. I thought that the ending was super weird, and the second half kind of didn't need to happen. But there's this scene in the first half of the book where he's like really late in his transformation, and there's just like this beautiful moment between like husband and wife and grief and letting go kind of thing. So I thought that was really, really super well done. It's also really weird, like just the writing style, like the style of the prose, because the husband is a high school like theater teacher, and he like some of the chapters are just like plays that the husband has written. So that was really super cool. I really enjoyed it. It was really weird, but I love me a weird book. Okay, I Who Have Never Known Men, I read earlier this year. I thought it was good. Somebody described it as a little heavy-handed, which like maybe, but I also heard that if you speak French, which I don't yet, you should read it in French because there's like a little bit that was like lost in translation, but I thought it was pretty well done, and I would put this in like my like feminist archive of like things that should exist on my shelf. Starling House is pretty good. This was a book of the month book. I liked it. I thought it was weird and creepy. I'm really into cryptids, and like, oh, this was a really great like Southern Gothic novel, which I've been wanting to get more into. So good for all of those reasons. Orbital by Samantha Harvey, I picked up for a book club. I thought it was fine. This is about like astronauts living on the ISS, and the ISS kind of coming to like the end of its time, but each chapter is a different hour and a different astronaut, I think. So it takes place, or no, sorry. Each chapter is a different hour, and all of the astronauts aboard the ISS kind of give their opinions about like what it's like to be within that hour on the ISS kind of thing. And a lot of it is just like the astronauts looking down onto Earth and then explaining how they feel about like humanity and like how we've gotten so far with technology, but not so far as a people kind of thing. So it was cool for those reasons. It was a little idyllic, honestly. And, yeah, but other than that, I thought the writing was really good. It was like a super well done piece of fiction. Okay, Emily Henry is what got me back into reading, and so she will always have a place on my shelves. I have 3 by her: Happy Place, Book Lovers, Beach Read. I think her books about books are the best books that she writes, and so Book Lovers is one of my favorite. And Beach Read was also really good. Happy Place was fine. I mostly just like that it took place in New England, and I'm from Michigan originally, and so I really like her books that are set in Michigan, which I think Beach Read was. Book Lovers, I think, was set in North Carolina. Okay, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, I think is just really pretty. I don't know if I'll own these forever, but it's kind of the same story over and over and over and over and over again. There's like one moral that the author just like really held onto with a steel grip. and is just writing like 7 books about that one moral. But I really liked Tales from the Cafe because you get to learn more about the cafe staff who appears in the first book before the coffee gets cold. Okay, I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit because I really don't want this to be 100 million years long, but I am really proud of all of the books that I own like on these 2 shelves. And then honestly, I think the rest of it will go pretty fast. So small things like these, Claire Keegan, I talked about 2 videos ago. I got this in Ireland. I thought it was really cool. It taught me about a piece of history that I didn't know about. But also, people, when they describe this, if you saw Emmy Reed's video about her most recent Read It or on Haul It, it featured Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan because she wasn't sure if she would like it. And I also remember saying I wasn't sure if I would like it, which is why I waited so long to pick it up. But people, including Emmy, say that there's like not one word in this book that does not belong there. And I totally agree with that. I thought the writing was really good. It was super intentional and it was just like really well done. The Salt Grows Heavy, I loved, by Cassandra Khaw. It's kind of about a mermaid and a medicine man from like the olden times, I don't know, who fall in love with each other, and it's just a creepy little horror novel that just like scratched an itch in my brain that I kind of didn't realize was there. I was a big fan of like Llamas with Hats and Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared when I was a teenager, and this kind of is just a callback to my love for those like creepy horror things. So I had a really great time with The Salt Grows Heavy, and then I also bought and read her, what's this called? It's Persons Non Grata series. It's Hammers on Bone, A Song for Quiet. I thought Hammers on Bone was a better narrative, and A Song for Quiet had a satisfying ending, but I think there's like, for my favorite authors, I kind of excuse them sometimes when they write things that is just like a little bit clearly them working through something, and that's a little bit how I felt with Hammers on Bone. And then A Song for Quiet I thought was good, but one Goodreads review mentioned that they wished that like the detective character was a little bit stronger throughout both of them, and I would agree with that. The House in the Cerulean Sea I really enjoyed. I think if you read The Long Way to a Small and Grey Planet and are looking for more cozy fantasy, The House in the Cerulean Sea is a really good follow-up to that. I think that The Long Way to a Small and Grey Planet did like thematic adult themes a little bit better without being like a book exclusively for grown-ups kind of thing. But this was really cute, very good, like found family vibes, and I feel like the redemption arc of the main character went so hard. Babel by R.F. Kuang, Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, and Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I'm just gonna move on. An Apprenticeship or The Book of Pleasures by Clarice Lispector. This was actually a gift from a good friend, and my sojourn? I don't know. Maybe you know what I'm trying to say, maybe you don't, but it was my introduction to Clarice Lispector, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like a great like portrait of a woman kind of book, you know? I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm doing the description of this book justice, but my friend, whenever she's a reader, and whenever she reads and likes a book, she like buys a bunch of copies of that book and then just gifts it to people for Christmas, and so this was like one of those, and I really enjoyed it. A Memory Called Empire I liked a lot. I thought it was like crazy in a satisfying way. This is a sci-fi. I'm realizing there's so much sci-fi on the shelf, but this is a sci-fi. It's about a diplomat from basically like not like a refugee nation, but like, so there's nations that have planets, and then there's the nation that she's from, which just like exists on ships. And so they are really good pilots. They also have like a really great way of preserving institutional knowledge kind of thing, that I think makes them unique from other nations, but kind of gives them a leg up in some way. So I'm trying to be really vague because I think everything that I learned in this book was worth learning while I read it, but it was really great. I enjoyed, like, if you didn't like Dune, which I didn't, if you thought Dune was a little too misogynist and a little too political in a way that you don't care about, but like you want a space politics book, A Memory Called Empire is a great alternative. A great alternative. Our Hideous Progeny is probably like my second favorite book right now. This is a queer feminist retelling of Frankenstein where they build a dinosaur, and that's kind of all you need to know. Convenience Store Woman, I don't know how I feel about Convenience Store Woman, if I'm being honest. I think I'll keep it for now because I think this is also, like, some of these books I also just like owning because I think that my library won't be complete without them, but also because I fear for the future of publishing and like free speech. And so Convenience Store Woman can stay. Remarkably Bright Creatures I did enjoy. I think that my mom would love this book. And so Mom, if you're watching this, please read this. This is kind of about a woman who forms an unlikely friendship with the octopus in the aquarium that she works in. But the octopus, like, they're friends, but also the octopus is like, oh my god, humans are so dumb. I can't believe she didn't see this thing that is obviously happening. And so the octopus is kind of just like her wingman, but like also not romantically. Okay. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath has to be on my shelf for obvious reasons. This was so freaking sad and definitely a cry for help. So read the trigger warnings before you read it, but I thought it was good. I thought it was good. I that's all the energy I have to say about the Bell Jar. Okay. I don't know where this came from. It was a gift from somebody. So thank you, whoever you were. It ended up on my shelf. Okay, Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. This is a signed copy because she is a local author, but like lowercase l on local. She's from New York City, or like writes in New York City and not Massachusetts. I bought it because I thought she's from Massachusetts. And also because I really liked, it's in my YA section, but I really liked, what's it called? It's facing backwards because the spine is pretty. A Study in Drowning. I really, really liked A Study in Drowning, but the more distance I get from it, the more I'm like, did I actually enjoy that? So I'm really looking forward to picking up the sequel to that, which was published late in 2025, that I just haven't gotten around to yet. Lady Macbeth was fine. It was a Macbeth retelling. There's like some weird, freaky dragon stuff that happened in that book. Just a heads up. Okay, Evil Eye by Etaf Rum, I really enjoyed. This was another Book of the Month book, and so I'm grateful to Book of the Month for exposing me to authors that I wouldn't otherwise be exposed to, and I think I would not have ever picked up Evil Eye, but it meant a lot to me. Okay, I have really terrible news, and it is that I'm editing the video currently. It is already 50 minutes long, and we only got to this part of my shelf and like the rest of my bookshelf, but then the storage on my phone filled up. So RIP to that. I'm gonna just like fly through the rest of the shelf because apparently I'm gonna do a lot of yapping for the next like 40 minutes. But okay, we ended at Evil Eye by Etaf Rum. Homefire I talked a lot about in my What I Read in January video. Ocean Vuong on Earth Were Briefly Gorgeous was recommended by the same friend who recommended Clarice Lispector's An Apprenticeship or the Book of Pleasures. She obviously has fantastic taste. I really, really liked On Earth Were Briefly Gorgeous, and because of that, I bought The Emperor of Gladness, but I heard that this book isn't as good. Anyways, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, I enjoyed. This was recommended by the same friend who recommended Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil and The Incandescent. So we both enjoyed this one. We both thought that it was fun, not too sciencey, and like a pretty good like first sci-fi book. But just like a pretty good, like kind of low, I wouldn't say that the stakes are low. The stakes are definitely super high, but it's not a stressful read. It's just a good time. And Days at the Murisakai Bookshop, I also really enjoyed, but I feel like my issue with like cozy Japanese fiction is that sometimes there's like some element of like suspended disbelief that you have to like choose to do because everything about the world is just a little bit too nice, like a little bit too pleasant. That's kind of how I felt about Days at the Murisakai Bookshop and Before the Coffee Gets Cold. Okay, now we're moving on to books that I have not read yet, so I'm just going to kind of skim through the titles. We have Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She wrote the feminist essay that Beyonce used in her one song. I don't even know, I can't even remember what song it was. I'm so discombobulated. The Poppy War, I thrifted this edition, which I'm really super proud of. American War by Omar El Akkad, I got used from the Narrative Bookstore in Davis Square, which I recommended in my previous video, but I really want to read this author's non-fiction work that was published more recently. These are 2 Steven Universe comics that I have read, but I don't know where to put my comics, and I would love to collect the rest of the Steven Universe comics because that show meant so much to me for a really long time. I only have 2 of them. I have number 29 and number 27. That'll do for now. That'll do for now, and they will live here for now. Severance I really want to read just to be a part of the conversation because everybody has this on their shelves. I bought this Game of Thrones to buddy read with a friend over last summer, and neither of us started it, so maybe we'll do that this summer. The 5th season I did read a lot of, and it was too sad, and so I put it down, but it was so good. I feel like I might read this in the fall. This feels like a very fall read to me. My Favorite Girlfriend was a French Bulldog is a collection of short stories that tell a singular narrative. So really excited to pick this up. I think it's going to be weird in hopefully the same way as Shark Heart and not in the same way as Death Valley. We'll see. Demon Copperhead, I want to read so bad. This goes back to my whole like Southern Gothic thing and wanting to get into the Southern Gothic genre, but I don't know if I should read David Copperfield first because this book is based on David Copperfield. I think I probably won't. I think I'll probably just read this eventually. Joan Didion, The White Album, I really want to pick up. I think this is a nonfiction essay, so maybe I should move it away from my fiction shelf. The Great Divide I got from the same signed first edition books subscription box that I got this is The Great Divide. That is State of Paradise. So really need to read this one, mostly just because I want to have read it because I've been looking at it for so freaking long. I kind of feel the same about The Secret History by Donna Tartt, but this is definitely a fall book. The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. I wanted to read something by N.K. Jemisin, but the 5th season was too sad, so I bought something else at the used bookstore and then haven't read either of them yet. Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. I talked about a lot 2 videos ago in my Europe haul. I got this from Ireland. I already talked about The Emperor of Gladness. The Safekeep by Yael van der Wooden is in my spring TBR. I'm really super excited to read it. It is last year's winner for the Women's Prize in Fiction. They just came out with a long list recently, and I really wanted to read the long list so badly this year, but I'm like fighting with my brain right now, and it's okay. Sometimes our bodies just can't do the things that we want them to do, and we just have to have patience with ourselves, and so I'm trying my best to do that. And then They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib. I think I also put in my spring TBR and so talked about in the last video. This is kind of a funny story. I think it's funny. It's not that funny though. I bought Moby Dick the Whale Norton Critical Edition from Thrift Books, and this cover was the cover art that was next to the title Moby Dick Norton Critical Edition, and it was like $5. I paid definitely more than $5 for this, by the way. I just want to point out that sticker. But anyways, it was worth a $5 gamble. I was either going to get this or like a great deal on the Norton Critical Moby Dick, and instead I got this. But it actually doesn't sound too bad, except it's called The Mistletoe Murders, and so I can't read it until... I know, I've already mentioned, maybe I'm getting my like timeline messed up, but I already mentioned that I don't love mystery, except this is a collection of short stories, and so I think if I were ever going to read mystery and like it, I think that I might actually like this. So we'll see. And then I was just so excited to show you guys this edition of Dracula. I also got this in my same Thrift Books order, but look at how stunning. I just take a gander. I'm like blushing. This is just, it's so cute. I love it so much. Okay, and now we get to talk about my most prized possession ever in my entire house ever. My little brother is the funniest person I've ever met, actually, and he is littler than me, but he's like 19 now. But anyways, when he was in high school, or maybe this was middle school when he made this a long time ago, but he thought he didn't like his art teacher, and so he tried to make all of his art kind of fucked up looking. And so this creation is affectionately called Devil Elmo, named by the artist. And I love this guy. I love this guy so much. So much. But I did break his tail off. So Michael, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. But I still have his tail. It's just back here, and I just need to super glue it or hot glue it together. I'm actually really really sad about it. My brother has asked me for this back before. Over my cold dead body is what I said to him. This is actually my favorite thing that I own. Like, if my apartment caught on fire, I would be like, oh, my apartment. And then like, oh my God, Double Elmo. I would be really sad about it. So I kind of feel like just breezing through. This is poetry and also short stories now that I'm looking at it. I went to a show based on, I say this and then I have a story about every book that I own, but I went to a show based on Falling Out of Time by David Grossman. It was pretty cool, very like artsy, interpretive, but it was at Symphony Hall, which was kind of exciting. It was like mostly a symphony, but then kind of an opera, but like there wasn't really words. It was kind of just like human noises. Anyways, talked a lot about Nobody from my Europe haul vlog. The Way Forward I read recently. I think I read it in February, but I really liked it actually. I thought it was really good. Ursula K. Le Guin, this is a collection of nonfiction short stories by her. A lot of them feature their cat, and this was gifted to me by my birthday by the same person who recommended Clarice Lispector and Ocean Vuong. She is so cool. She is so cool. This book was really good. Neruda I read a lot of in college because I took a class on Spanish poetry, and I found this in the used bookstore that I love, the used book superstore in Burlington, Massachusetts. But I found it there in the clearance section for like $1, I think, and I was like, oh, I would love to own some Neruda. Bloodchild by Butler. I liked some of these short stories, and some of the other ones were like just fine, but a couple of them have really, really stuck with me. Bliss Montage by Ling Ma. There's one story in here that I own this book for. It's just so good. I think it's literally the first story, but it's really weird. I really enjoy it. And because of Bliss Montage, I'm really excited to read Severance. The best short stories of 2023 is on my shelf because I wanted to do a video about it in 2023. Maybe I still will. I don't know. Verdict is still out. Ocean Vuong, Time as a Mother, I didn't super love. It kind of read like iPhone Notes app poetry, and was really emotional, for sure, but not my favorite style. And then I also just found a collection of Robert Frost selected poems in the clearance section of the used book superstore. Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Hannah from this morning. I will warn you, the camera angles get crazy for the rest of this video. I don't have time to re-record it, and it's probably also not that big of a deal. Wait, let me put this on my hat, actually. Okay, that I think will be much better. I think that will be better for everyone. So this is my nonfiction shelf. I have a bunch of books about yoga because I want to learn how to do yoga, but instead of just practicing it, I got a bunch of books on it, so that way when my motivation is low, which hasn't been high yet, I don't know, but when my motivation is low, I can pick up a book about yoga and start reading it. And then I also have a bunch of books by Gandhi. I would really love to read the collected works of Gandhi, kind of like how I want to read the entire canon of Virginia Woolf. It's going to be a very Virginia Woolf and Gandhi year for me, which I think is a lethal combination. Imagine the literary power couple that would be Virginia Woolf and Gandhi. So really looking forward to that for my 2026. And I'm not even a little bit kidding. I am kidding about them being a crazy literary power couple, but I'm not kidding about wanting to read the entire canon of both of them. Probably I won't finish both by the end of this year. I think they're both pretty prolific. And also just deal with some heavy stuff, man. And I think I deserve a little bit of peace and joy every now and then. So that is my nonfiction section. It's Gandhi, Yoga, Gandhi, Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson, Yoga, Gandhi. So love how that vertical stack is going. I tried to keep the vertical stack on theme, which is how Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson ended up in there. I'm trying to keep it books related to my desire to learn more about peace and justice, which I feel like we get the point. I talk about that in like every video. And then next up, we have nonfiction. There's like a couple that I haven't made it to yet, and I will point them out. And then my YA. So Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, I listened to and I really enjoyed. The same thing for The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I felt really seen by The Anthropocene Reviewed and would really recommend it to anyone who needs to feel a little seen and might have dealt with depression now or at some point. And also, if you listen to the audiobook, John Green sings to you Auld Lang Syne, which was just a treat. That was lovely. Everything is TB by John Green I picked up because he's John Green, but I really wanted it to be more about how everything is about tuberculosis. Like, I think for a book named Everything is About TB, it scratched the surface. But also, I think it was supposed to. I think it was supposed to be a primer for people who haven't done a lot of critical thinking about the way that like global infrastructure is set up related to healthcare. And I haven't done a lot of thinking about that, but I know a little bit. And so it just like didn't really hit the mark for me. But I think I was not evaluating it fairly. Okay. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. I talked a lot about my What I Read in January video. I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I read in 2024, I think. I think I also listened to this as an audiobook. And Jeanette McCurdy reads the audiobook, which was also a treat. I kind of want to read her fiction book that she just came out with, just so I could be a part of the conversation, but I'm not a huge fan of thrillers and mystery books in general. So maybe I won't. Burn a Crime by Trevor Noah kind of honestly belongs in my vertical stack over there, but if you haven't read it yet, it's a great introduction to celebrity memoir, and is just a really kind of harrowing tale of what it means to grow up in apartheid South Africa, but like what it means to grow up and like have the entire world pitted against you. But like when you're in it, you don't know it, kind of thing, until you're older. So I thought that Trevor Noah did a great job with that. And then The Disordered Cosmos by Chandra Prescott Weinstein I enjoyed, because I was fun fact, I majored in astrophysics and I was an astronomer at the time that I read this, and I think I read it for a department book club. But she's actually publishing her second novel, which one of my astrophysics friends and I are going to go to like the formal book launch of at the Harvard bookstore in a couple of weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then The Search for a Nonviolent Future, I have 2 copies of because they made an updated version recently, and I thought that was a good introduction to the principles of nonviolence. The Intersectional Environmentalist by Leah Thomas, I really super enjoyed. I thought it was a great introduction, but like a medium level introduction to intersectional environmentalism and like just how to be a better environmentalist, but like not carry forward the traditions of white supremacy. So yeah, pick that up. Educated by Tara Westover, I loved. If you don't know what it's about a woman who kind of like gets her way out of this like very like, I want to say this very carefully because I know that not all of Mormonism is harmful and not all of Mormonism is cult-like, but she grew up in a particularly harmful household that like said, where like the patriarch of the house was kind of like, we are this way because we are devout Mormons. And so she left this very cult-like environment where she was like it just wasn't a good environment for her, but also it like didn't equip her with the tools that she needed to like be a successful human in like the rest of like the global architecture. And so she kind of found her way out of that and like found her own path. But the beautiful thing about Educated by Tara Westover is she did it scared and she did it uncertain, and she just kept doing the things that she was doing because they felt like the things that she needed to do to be well and to be her, kind of thing. And that is so remarkably difficult to do when like you're leaving your entire support system behind with the choices that you're making. So that was really super great. Quit Like a Woman, I also really enjoyed. This is by Holly Whitaker, and the subtitle to this is How to Stop Drinking in a Society Obsessed with Alcohol. I really wish there was a little bit more emphasis on the like everyone around me drinks alcohol. Like, how do I deal with that? Not from like, I am not a recovering alcoholic, but have been like flirting with the idea of being sober by choice, kind of thing. Like, everyone who is sober by choice, but flirting with the idea of like giving up alcohol, but also just like I'm really interested in the psychology behind why we as a species are a little obsessed with alcohol. So I wish that I focused on that a little bit more, but I really loved Quit Like a Woman, and I appreciated a lot how she kind of like attacked in a way the like way that quitting alcohol is like branded to people now. It's like it's AA or bust kind of thing, and like you are like, there's kind of this belief that like if you don't do AA you're not actually going to quit kind of thing, or like that's the thing that people will tell you. But AA was like created and founded for men and by men in like a really particular like way of life. It's like for men and by men, but like for successful men in like the 60s or something. And like very few people can relate to what that was now, even like successful men now kind of thing. So she did a really good job of like balancing the like, this thing is corrupt, also it still can help people, and also it just needs to evolve, and also here's an alternative kind of thing. Okay, so that is Quit Like a Woman. And then I Am Malala, I read a while ago. I also listened to this as an audiobook. I thought the narrator did a really good job. I really, really want to read the book that she just came out with. It was so interesting just to like read the blurb. She was like, I was 16 when I wrote, like, she like is responsible for a lot of the source material in I Am Malala. I mean, it's called I Am Malala, but she was like 16 or something when this book was written, and I think a lot of it was written on interviews maybe, but it was just really interesting to like hear, even just for a couple of sentences, what it meant to become like a global figure. I'm so excited to read her book, and I think it's probably super prevalent now. Okay, What My Bones Know. This is crazy, but I was going to co-read this with my therapist, but we just kind of haven't gotten around to it, and now I see my therapist less because I'm doing better. But I will get to this eventually. How to Break Up with Your Phone. I was I was reading this, listening to this, and then I was like, oh, it would be fun to like get the book and work through it. And then I got the book and haven't worked through it. Crying in H Mart, I really super loved. I haven't read this, but I talked about it in my books I got in Europe haul. I really want to read No More Police. I bought this like 2 or 3 years ago and just haven't gotten around to it. But my Storygraph told me that it read hopefully, like it had hopeful undertones. So really looking forward to that. This is my YA section. The Firekeeper's Daughter, my mom mailed me so I could do a book club with my sisters, my brother's girlfriend, and her. But I kind of hate it a lot. I kind of hate it so much. I think that there's some YA that I can read, and there's some YA that I can't read, and this is not in the camp of books that I can read, you know? So it's been super cringy, if I'm being totally honest. But that's Firekeeper's Daughter. This is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed, which I really enjoyed when I read it. And then this is a middle grade series, the Witch and Wizard series by James Patterson, that I have the first 3 books of, kind of as an homage or like a gift for my younger self. I reread them kind of recently, and they're so bad. They're really not good, but they will stay on my shelf for forever because younger me loved that. And then my YA section kind of continues down here. So I have the original 5 Percy Jackson books, which I also reread recently, and I do think that the Percy Jackson books stood up quite nicely. I talked about those pretty extensively in my what I read in January video. Aristotle and Dante discover the secret. I'm losing the plot. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I read when I was in college. Really super loved it and need to read the sequel. The Book Thief I read, I think, in January. So I think I talked about that in that vlog. Parable of the Sower I read and really enjoyed. But this Parable of the Sower is kind of like the origin of a lot of modern sci-fi, and so if you've read a YA dystopia, you've read kind of Parable of the Sower. But I think it's worth reading on its own because it's one of these forerunners of like YA dystopia, but also because Octavia Butler slays, dude. Her writing is so good. And then I have this copy of The Hunger Games, which I bought used, even though it's really super beautiful. And then Red Rising, my stepdad got me for Christmas a few years ago because he really liked the series and wanted me to read it. Okay, I have 4 graphic novels that I own currently, and this Polaroid that was a gift from my bestie. So thank you, bestie, if you're watching this. I got for my graphic novels, I think I was in like a reading slump last year, and my friend who recommended Project Hail Mary and Bury Their Bones in the Midnight Soil, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, recommended to me the Scott Pilgrim graphic novels, and I had a blast with them. We both agree, but I think she said first that it is just such a true like book to screen adaptation. So if you like the movie, you will super fuck with the graphic novels. I thought they were so good. And then we got Genderqueer by Maya Kababe, which belongs here because I'm afraid for the future of publishing. How many times am I going to say that in this video? I don't know. And then I have my current hyperfixation, which is classics. I feel like a little bit like people are overcomplicating this personal curriculum thing. I feel like I don't need to sketch out a whole 14-week curriculum for myself. I just need to embolden myself to follow my natural paths of curiosity, but also do things that are a little bit harder than what I can handle. And those are the things that like cook my brain to perfection, in like cook in like a well done way, not in like a you're cooked kind of way. And that for me has just been reading classics because they're a little bit harder than like a fun fluffy fantasy, but they're also classic for a reason. And some of them hit, dude. Some of them hit so good. But I was trying to sort them into read and unread, but I have The Great Gatsby down here. And most of my classics are short enough to like have that be okay. But then I read Animal Farm and it's too tall. And so Animal Farm I reread recently. I read it when I was in high school, but wanted to reread it as an adult. And I'm glad that I did, just so I can I think that there's some grief that I really have held on to since like the first, that's so dramatic, but there's like a little bit of grief that I have held on to since the first time that I read it, like for the other animals on the farm who weren't the pigs kind of thing. And so rereading it kind of helped me like put that feeling to rest a little bit, but also totally like I can totally see why I felt so viscerally about that. So it's a super relevant read, especially now. Which is such a bummer. But anyways, Great Gatsby, I also read recently. This was kind of wild. I do want to read more of Mr. Fitzgerald. I think it would be great for me to read more of like the American authors. Yeah. That's the only part of that. There's only that to the thought. There's no more. Okay, we have Christmas with Louisa May Alcott, which are some of her short stories that just like took place during Christmas time. Alice Through the Looking Glass and Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. This edition is kind of neat. Look at it. It's a little. I got this. Oh, it's also illustrated. I got this from a farmer's market, a craft market in Davis Square in Cambridge, Somerville. I still don't know if Davis Square is in Cambridge or in Somerville. I think it's Cambridge. Okay. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. If you don't know it, you should look into it. It's a pretty good like psychological horror classic. Okay, and then the Castle of Otranto is like the origin gothic horror novel. So I wanted to read it, and it was just shorter than Frankenstein. And also I feel like I get this thing that I like to call the reedy jeebies about books that I buy because I really, really want to read, and then I stare at on my shelf for like 5 years because I'm like kind of afraid of reading them. I kind of get the reedy-jeebies about it. You know what I'm saying? So that's Frankenstein, but The Castle of Otranto was not that. So I read it like as soon as I got it. A Room of One's Own, I read recently. If you haven't read it recently, you should reread it. I think a lot of the way that I am is because I read this at a young age. I read A Room of One's Own as a preteen. Okay, The Old Man in the Sea, I loved. I really enjoyed it. It was like sad. It was like sad, and it was also like ocean. Sad ocean does it for me. I don't know. Little Women, I talked about a lot in my What I Read in January video. I really enjoyed it. Three Guineas by Virginia Woolf, I also talked about in my What I Read in January video. And then the rest of these, I kind of mostly haven't read yet. So To the Lighthouse, I'm going to put Alice in Wonderland just back here. To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf is on my spring TBR. Frankenstein is on my spring TBR. The Inheritance by Louisa May Alcott I bought. It's really pretty. Look at this edition. But I think I had a gift card. My coworkers bought me a gift card to Barnes & Noble when I was like sick at one point, which was really so sweet of them. And so I went to Barnes & Noble. I bought The Inheritance and a book of the Monday crosswords from the New York Times. And I had like, I mean, it was an awful time, but it was made so much better by that small gesture. So I really appreciated that. Henry James, The Turn of the Screw. I think I'm going to eat this up, but Henry James scares me a little bit, and so I kind of wanted to read Dickens before I read Charles Dickens. Is he the one who wrote David Copperfield, Charles Dickens. That sounds right. Okay, but I kind of wanted to read Dickens before I read Henry James because I think that they're both going to be difficult, but in very different ways. And I think Dickens might bore me just a bit, but I think I will read Dickens and be bored and then be like, wow, Henry James is so inspired. So can you tell that I overthink things a lot? And then we have The Picture of Dorian Gray, which I'm so excited to read. And this edition is like kind of whatever. But I'm excited to read this, but I really want to read the uncensored version. And I think that this is censored, ? I don't know. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. I really want to pick up Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I will not let this book best me, okay? I know that sounds a little dramatic. I've tried reading this 2 different times, and let me tell you something about myself. So, lore drop, I did the International Baccalaureate program back in high school. Once and always achiever, always an overachiever kind of thing. But for the IB program, you have to do this thing if you do higher level, like language and literature. I do have a hard cutoff. Okay, we're good. If you do higher level language and literature, you have to do this thing called an interactive oral commentary, where you do like a 20-minute interview, basically. It's basically like an oral exam about a excerpt from a book, and you kind of know the short list of titles that could be excerpted from, that the excerpts could be pulled from. And The Heart of Darkness was one of these books that the excerpt could be pulled from. So was Slaughterhouse-Five by Mr. Vonnegut, I believe. And so was some of the works. It wasn't Robert Frost. Don't remember who it was. I read maybe 3 poems from the poetry collection. I started this and did not finish it. And then I absolutely devoured, sat down, studied, and prepped by reading the Slaughterhouse-Five. And so I just really rolled the dice, man. There was like an insanely small % chance that I would end up with an excerpt from Slaughterhouse-Five. And not only did I end up with an excerpt, I ended up with the freaking excerpt that let me nail the shit out of the park. So definitely don't do that. If you're in the International Baccalaureate program and you know your IAPs are coming up, or your, IOCs are coming up, study. Don't do what I did and only study one of the possibilities, because he could have pulled Heart of Darkness and I would have been fucked. I maybe wouldn't have gotten my IB diploma, but he didn't. And I'm here and it's all fine. So, I got this for clearance at my favorite used bookstore, and I tried reading it again at some point in my adult life because I was like, that was so crazy of me. I think I was just being a little bit of a little bitch, and I should pick this up and like actually like try to get through it because my like English teacher and I had pretty similar tastes from what I could tell from like the books that he assigned, and he really liked The Heart of Darkness. And so I feel like there could be something here. And so I tried picking it up and reading it again, and I was so bored. But I bought it. I bought the thinnest copy I could find so it wouldn't feel like that much of an undertaking, and I am going to finish The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. And god damn it, I know I'm going to like it, which is the worst part. I kind of hope I don't like it, but we'll see. Okay, Something Wicked This Way Comes. I bought also in my favorite used bookstore, but this is the second book in a series. Did you know that? I didn't know that. And so now I own it, but I don't own the first book. Oh well. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I also bought from my favorite used bookstore. I think that this edition is really pretty. There's Miss Angelo on the back, and I'm really excited to read it. And then Orlando by Virginia Woolf. I'm so excited to read this. I went on a vacation to Orlando in October, and I really wanted to have this be the book that I read while I was there for obvious reasons. I even bought this new, and I never buy books new because it just wasn't coming into my favorite used bookstore. But then I asked my friend who I was on vacation with if she wanted to buddy read with me. Oh, and also I was still trying to finish Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So I mostly read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I read the entire book that we wanted to buddy read, which was a Dowry of Blood, I think. I don't know. It was a vampire book. it was a slutty vampire book. But we had fun reading it while we were on vacation, and I just never picked up Orlando. Never picked it up, which I'm really sad about. This is like a trans time travel story, and I'm like, I want to read this so bad. But we aren't there yet. And then Animal Farm I already talked about. Okay. So guys, that's pretty much it. We're gonna do a lightning round through the rest of my bookshelf because I kind of gotta go. I kind of have plans, which is crazy. I'm going to see the Boston Legacy Football Club first inaugural women's team match. Don't look into the grammar of that sentence. It doesn't matter. The angles are getting worse. I'm looking in my viewfinder and it's not good. Does anyone else hate what my hair is doing on this side? I keep tucking it into my thingy, but then it keeps coming untucked. Okay, well now my sweater looks weird. Okay, it's fine. So I was very generously gifted a collection of Easton Press books, which are these leather-bound classics. Some of them are classics. Some of them, there's like a bunch of military history ones. And then some of them are just like modern books. Like I think I had a copy of The Martian by Indy Weir for a while. Except I think that they're really pretty, but they don't really like I kind of like my books to be a little gritty. I don't know. That's just my preference. So I've been working on getting rid of these and mostly selling them to coworkers. So this is just kind of my storage for the Eastern Press books that I don't want, but that I'm working towards getting rid of. This I think was almost the exact stuffed animal I had as a child. This is a Jolly Cat, but it's just the purple bunny one. And I really wanted it. I don't know, man. I was feeling nostalgic someday and I saw this in a bookstore, so I bought it. I have a deck of cards that should be down here, but it's with my tarot cards because decks of cards should be together. I don't know. I got these in Salem when I went to Salem with some of my friends. And then this camera I bought for myself when I first started thinking about doing YouTube like 3 years ago, and like posted my first videos. But the learning curve is a little bit steeper than what I want it to be for now. So for now, you get an iPhone 15 camera videos, but I do have this camera to upgrade to whenever I feel like I kind of have a handle on like my editing style. I really only want like one difficult thing to be happening at the time with YouTube, and I mean just recording and uploading videos is enough of a challenge for me for now. Okay, So we talked about Easton Press, we talked about these fun things. These are the books in French that I own because I really want to learn French. These are graded readers, so books that are for like people who don't speak French to learn French. They're like grade 0, like you are a little itty bitty baby learning French. This I got for free at a conference that I went to. I was like, could be cool to learn about climate dynamics. This was a coffee table book that I got that just felt too cluttered to have on my coffee table. But this was a Kickstarter that I backed actually, and it's just like a cutout of all of the highest points of each of the 50 states of the US. How freaking cool is that? How freaking cool is that? I think it's pretty dope. And then these are my fiance's books. He gets a little section on my shelf because I love him very much. So I sacrifice a corner for him. I think he actually has, I think this is double stacked and he has more books back there. And then I have my board games. And that's my bookshelf. There's like a few books that are missing because I lent them out, and a few more because they just haven't made it here yet, because I did a little bit of book shopping because I couldn't read and I didn't know what I was going to upload this week because I just didn't really have anything interesting to talk about, and this is my longest video yet. So I'm really glad that we did this little bookshelf tour. I don't know how long I'm going to have this actual shelf for, so I'm really glad that I got to, show you around while it exists and while my books are in this configuration. So thank you all so much for hanging out with me for so long. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.